Hello, Resurrection. It is July the 29th. We've gotten maybe a tiny little break from the heat this week, and it has been a little more bearable starting today. Today, last week in my video, I talked to you about a very famous church lady. That church lady's name was Mary, Mary from Migdal, maybe Mary Magdalene. They think that probably she was called Madeline. She was called Magdalene because she had come from a little town called Migdal or Magda, depending on how you transliterate it. One of my favorite church ladies. Well, lo and behold, today is the feast day of my two other favorite church ladies, and of course, you know who those are. They're Mary and Martha. Now, I had been raised my entire life by spunky church ladies. I would say my grandmother was a spunky church lady. And church lady, in my mind, is one of the greatest compliments that I can pay to somebody. I grew up and married a spunky church lady. I have always been enamored with spunky church ladies, whether they're bishops or priests or deacons or lay women. Church ladies are my closest friends and my most reliable partners in ministry. They always have been. And today we hear the story of those two church ladies that meant so much in the life and in the ministry of Jesus. You know, there's a theory. I think I said this last week. There's a theory that Mary Magdalene was actually the funding, that Mary was a little rich girl, and that her daddy's money funded the ministry of Jesus and his disciples, that she kind of took care of them that way. That's just a legend, right? It's just part of the apocryphal stories of Mary Magdalene, and of those there are many, many. There are not as many apocryphal stories. That's stories that are not in the Bible regarding Mary and Martha, the two sisters, Mary and Martha of Bethany. But I think it is clear from the Bible that Mary and Martha were just as important, just as integral in the life of Jesus and in his ministry. Their brother Lazarus was possibly Jesus' best friend. It's kind of debatable whether it's Thomas or or John or Lazarus. But I think you could probably make a case for Lazarus being Jesus' best friend. And Jesus was in their home a lot. And Mary and Martha thought of Jesus as a big brother. And he treated, especially Mary, he treated like a little sister. Martha, on the other hand, was way too spunky to be treated like a little sister. I think she treated Jesus more like a little brother than the other way around. And she, in the Bible, she lets Jesus have it on at least one occasion, maybe two occasions, actually, when she's fussing about Mary not being in the kitchen, and then when she's fussing at Jesus for waiting so long to get to Lazarus, that he had already died. And she says, if you had been here, he would not have died. And she was really fussing at him. She was letting him have it. She knew who Jesus was. She knew he had power over life and death. Whether she understood that he was God Almighty at this point, I don't know. But I think if anybody had it figured out as to who Jesus was kind of early on, it would have been those three church ladies. It would have been Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Martha, who would have known. They were the ones who were holding that ministry up. And isn't it still the same way in the church today? It is very often the women of the church who hold things together. Now, it was absolutely that way when I got to Resurrection. Now, most everybody on the board, almost everybody on the vestry when I came to Resurrection was male, but it was not the men who were holding the church together. It was the church ladies who were holding the church together. And I think anybody who's been part of Resurrection for a long time knows this very well, that it was the church ladies who held things together through some pretty rocky times. And it was the same way with Jesus. Jesus was the original church lady affinity. He loved church ladies, and I got the church lady gene also. I adore a church lady, and I always I always have. They have always been my biggest supporters and my right hands in my ministry. So that leads me to uh, we we doing pretty well with our lay leadership at Church of the Resurrection right now, and I think that we've got a good, diverse body of younger folks and older folks, of men and women. I think we're pretty diverse in our lay leadership. However, I think if you look around the church, it's not going to take you long to realize that we still do have some really, really fine, outstanding, high functioning church ladies that I don't know what we do without them. So y'all, when you look out at the church and you see a church lady who has been working herself to death, loading and unloading the dishwasher and cleaning the kitchen, setting up the altar, arranging the flowers, working in the office, being in charge of the guilds, running the prayer groups, running the AA meetings. When you see those church ladies, I want you to think of the ministry of Jesus and how it might not have made it on this earth if it had not been for church ladies. And thank you, church ladies, because I don't know what we'd do without them. Men, we're awfully lucky to have these church ladies in our lives, whether we have them in our home or whether we have them in our church or whether we have them at work. We are awfully lucky to have church ladies. So y'all, let's make this week Thank You Church Lady Week. I love y'all. Wednesday night happening tonight, family dinner and an informal Bible study. No youth group tonight, no children's programming tonight. We're 3 or 4 weeks away from that, but we're going to get that going in 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks. We'll get all of our programming back up and going. I hear that Wednesday nights are going very, very well, and I sure am grateful that y'all have given me a couple of weeks break from that Wednesday. I love you so much. I'll see you Sunday. If you're not here on Wednesday tonight, I'll see you Sunday at 8 o'clock or 10:30.